Hi, I'm Dr. Meg Haworth, and I am a doctor of transpersonal psychology, and I help women who were sexually, physically, or emotionally abused as children and now have a chronic illness to get well using my holistic wellness programs. My big program is called Get Well Now. There is a major link between chronic illness and sexual abuse, physical abuse, and emotional abuse as children. And the ACE study, which is the largest public health study ever done on this, is 77,000 people were studied at Kaiser Permanente in San Diego, California. And what they found were that the rates of chronic illness were significantly higher, and various types of chronic illnesses as well, in patients who had been abused as children or had certain types of family dysfunction like divorce or neglect, or a parent who was incarcerated, or watching your parents scream at each other all the time, or watching your father abuse your mother. So at any rate, the ACE quiz is available on my website, meghaworth.com, meghaworth.com, and it's right up front. So download that ACE quiz and you can assess your risk. If you're just now hearing that there's a link between these two things, I would love it if you go to my website and download that ACE quiz, and then you can just set up a free consultation with me to talk about the score. I find it interesting when I talk to people about their ACE score because of the sometimes, just the divorce or the way the parents screamed at each other can really significantly affect them, and then I help them with the connections between those two things. So that's the long and short of what I do. But today what we're talking about is why people wait decades to report sexual abuse, rape, and or harassment. And this conversation is really coming from a conversation that a friend of mine pulled me into on her chat thread on Facebook. Somebody had asked the question, and she asked it in a way that was like shaming towards the person who waited so long. So I was asked to jump in there with my professional opinion and also my personal experience, because I'm an abuse survivor, and I worked with lots of abuse survivors over the years, and worked with helping them in their holistic wellness and in their deep inner transformation work using transpersonal psychology, which is very different than traditional psychology, because we focus on what's great about you. We go and we look for that, versus on focusing on pathology and treatment of disorders, which absolutely has its place. And I say, use them all together. At any rate, so when this person asked the question in that way, where it was just it was like shaming the person who waited so long, like it just doesn't make sense, is kind of what she said. Why doesn't this person report it right away? And here's what I said. They wait 20 years because they're afraid no one will believe them when they speak up. It's a he said, she said situation typically, unless you have footage like we did with Donald Trump, or we have footage of video of Matt Lauer recently as well, where it's irrefutable, and he's going to have to step up to the plate, or at least he did. Thankfully, more and more people need to do that. So they're afraid nobody's going to believe them, and that's a huge piece of the puzzle here. They're afraid that they will be ridiculed and accused of provoking the abuser because of what they were wearing, or how they were acting, or were they drinking. We have a society where we are unwittingly supporting the abuser and not the victim. And this kind of mentality has got to shift, and I think that we're in a place in our culture where these things are coming up to the surface, and lots of people are finally getting the courage and the bravery to report these things, because they're scared. There's so many reasons why we don't do this. So this whole, it's really a conspiracy of silence that happens, and it happens particularly in families where the one who was abused, they don't want to report it because they're afraid they're going to lose all their family members. because they won't, nobody wants to believe that, the family patriarch or the family matriarch abused them. Nobody wants to deal with the fallout of that. So what happens is the lion's share of shame and guilt and pain falls on the abuse survivor. And what happens to them is that they often end up being addicts. They often end up being with chronic illnesses. They often end up being suicidal or suiciding, or they end up all of the above. And it's a really sad situation that we really have to look at changing. And until we change it, we're going to keep seeing a lot of victims going by the wayside. And help is needed on all aspects. We need it for the abusers and for the victims as well. Because I can tell you most abusers will never admit to the fact that they abused. I have a theory that some of them don't even realize that they did the abuse, because the same dissociative state that you enter in order to survive going through the abuse is the same dissociative state that the abuser enters to abuse. And I think that they often will tuck it back into their own memory banks as well. And the shame on both ends of the spectrum is just so weighty and so, it's really painful and really difficult for the abuse survivor. So I went on to say in this chat thread on Facebook that even when it comes to small children, that people don't believe them. The cultural norm has to stop. We have to stop making it so that a 6-year-old girl or a 20-year-old woman has to defend herself against her abuser when the abuser is the one that shattered her soul and took her innocence in the first place. And I think a lot of people don't understand how deeply shattering this experience is. I notice a lot of people that I work with, they push the experience away, and then it comes out in all these other ways. They may blow up at family members. They may push everyone around them away. They may move multiple times. They may go from career to career to career. They may, it's like they're just trying to get comfortable. And being a survivor myself, I can tell you I've done a lot of those things. And it's dealing with it is the place where the power comes from. But dealing with it in a holistic manner, where you're looking at the mind, the body, and the soul, and how those things are connected as one unit. And that's what I do to help people transform their abuse histories and their chronic illnesses, because they will manifest in the body over time as a result of this kind of issue. So I went on to say that the impact sexual violation has on the victimized is lifelong. So much of it can be healed, but the way that it is handled when someone steps forward is further shattering to the abused. They're already traumatized, and moving forward to talk about their abuse when they're not likely to get the support is really difficult. So the amount of courage that it takes to stand up and say this horrific thing happened to me is massive. The shame overtakes the abuse survivor and keeps them in fear. The weight only grows heavier over the years of silence as the chronic illnesses pile up from stuffing down the emotions, from stuffing down that secret. It's a complex problem, and thankfully many people are coming forward now. And so to all the women and the men that are coming forward and talking about their abuse, kudos, good for you, because let the healing begin. So let's change the way that we think about this problem. I think that's one of the key things that we need to do here. Let's not ask why they wait. We're asking the wrong question. Let's ask why they're raping. Why are they assaulting? Why are they demoralizing women in the first place? So let's get to the root of the problem and solve that. We keep putting everything in the lap of the victim and taking it away from the abuser. And so until recently, now we've seen, these high profile men being fired from their positions as a result of their sexual harassment. And, in order for them to be fired, it's not like they're just, doing this willy-nilly to anyone who gets a report. There's investigations that are launched. It's a big deal. So in order to get that far, it's a big deal. So personally, I can tell you, and this was also in that chat thread I was talking about, where the person asked, about why people wait decades, and said it in a sort of shaming manner, like, why don't they just report it right away? I reported one of my abusers right away when it happened, but I was personally discouraged from telling the authorities about them by the adults around me. And there was another a girl my age in the neighborhood who had also been abused by this neighborhood child molester. He had the label of neighborhood child molester. I had to deliver a paper to this man for 2 years. And everyone knew, this man had been in and out of the prison system, but he was still roaming the neighborhood, stalking. He stalked me every day for 2 years, and stalking other kids in the neighborhood and abusing them. So there are so many potential scenarios as to why. I mean, when you're just a child and you're shut down in that manner, and I get it. I get why my parents made that decision, and I used to be angry at them for it. I'm not mad at them for it anymore, but I can see why, because it's the conspiracy of silence that happens. It's also, they didn't want me to get hurt. I can totally understand that. They didn't want me to get dragged through the court system. But our court system, I have to say, is pretty backward. If we are making children feel shamed, further shamed by the experience of abuse that they go through. And I know part of that is they're trying to determine, hey, did it really happen? But there are a lot of symptoms that let us know that, it happened. And as your life goes forward, and as you develop chronic illnesses, or as you have difficulty in establishing and maintaining romantic relationships, and there's so many different, or as you over-sexualize other people, or disconnect from your world, or blow up at people for no apparent reason. There's so many different symptoms and things that you can have that can be healed. And that's really the key right there. These things can be healed. The emotional fallout, the shame, the pain, the guilt, the sorrow. Yes, there will be triggering events, but they become less and less and less as you work through the layers of emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical issues associated with your abuse history. So I think it's great that people are speaking up now, and that hopefully when the chorus of voices are loud enough, that a new score will be written for women and men everywhere. People just like me who are victims of sexual abuse, harassment, rape, molestation. I myself have left 2 jobs as a result of sexual harassment. And it's a tough decision. So there's a lot of reasons why men and women keep this in. I'm finding, I'm in a documentary right now called Shades of Shame, and what we're finding when we're trying to find men that will come forth and talk about their sexual abuse history and its association to chronic illness, that we're having a very difficult time doing that. Even men who are sort of out there and open in certain communities where they're speaking, like if they're in the addiction community and they're out there speaking about their sexual abuse history, they don't even want to be on the film. And there's so much shame involved with particularly men, because they're taught not to talk about their feelings. They're taught, they should suck it up and just deal with it. But I think, and I've seen this too, just in my work, is that a lot of them end up re-abusing, not because they necessarily want to. They are stuck in this dissociative place, and they are unconsciously re-abusing. And that's kind of how abuse works. You know, victim and abuser are two sides of the same coin. And I think that we're looking at it in a way that it really has to change. So, so I'm changing that. I'm changing that for a lot of women and men that I work with. I mainly focus on women, but I also work with men who were sexually, physically, or emotionally abused as children and now have a chronic illness. And I help them get well. And I do this, I've been doing this for many years. And also, this is coming out from my own story of having gone through abuse as a child, and then the chronic illnesses started piling up in my early 20s. So it's, you know, a lot of people are going through this. So if you're just now making this connection and you want help and any of what I said speaks to you, just go to my website and you can download the ACE quiz and take that to assess your risk for chronic illness, or maybe see if you feel that there is a connection between illness or persistent symptoms, like maybe you get migraine headaches a lot, maybe you have a persistent long-term cough. Those things will tend to eventually spill over into a chronic illness diagnosis, often autoimmune diseases. Fibromyalgia, that's one of the things that I had. Mixed connective tissue disease. I had irritable bowel syndrome. I'd been through the trauma of drowning when I was a small child. I was struck by lightning, and I was 47 at the time. So I've had a significant amount of trauma plus a number of sexual abuse, a number of them throughout my childhood and also into early adulthood. And I've been harassed along the way. I mean, this story, I'm tired of my own story. I think a lot of us are tired of the story, and so much of it I think has to do with teaching men and women appropriate sexual behaviors, teaching them appropriate respect, and teaching them not to over-sexualize the opposite sex, or whichever sex you're interested in. However that is for you, that's fine wherever you are. But if you feel like you don't feel at peace with your sexuality, if you don't feel like you have this kind of history, tell somebody, step forward and take care of yourself. So if anybody in this chat thread has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. If you have, and I'll look later to see if there are any other questions later after this live is over, because we're almost done with the broadcast here. But so if you have any questions, or if you have any thoughts that you want to throw into the chat, some other reasons why people don't come forward, the losing of your job, the losing of your career, you get threatened. I mean, many abuse survivors are threatened with their lives. So that's scary for them, especially for a small child. One woman that I knew, she was told, if you tell anybody, I'll kill you. I mean, she ended up having migraine headaches, and her head, she had horrible pounding headaches all the time. And it was because she was really storing that energy in her head because he'd whispered this into her ear. And once she released that and released the emotions at the bottom of the story and the belief systems attached with it, then she was able to heal, and her migraines went away. So these kinds of things happen all the time with transpersonal psychology. It's a very different way of looking at the who you are and the why you're here and your history and your future, and where you want to go in your life. And so I often say that transpersonal is really about walking you through the gap between who you think you are, which is who you're told you're supposed to be, what society tells you're supposed to be, what your family tells you you're supposed to be, and then who you know you are. And the who you know you are is the boundless place. It's the place of love. It's the place of light. It's the place of peace. It's a place of joy. And in moving into that place, not that you're going to live there full time, I can tell you I don't, but I can access it pretty easily after all the many years that I've worked in this particular field and worked on myself through this experience of transpersonal psychology. So anyway, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me. You can always private message me on Facebook, and go to my website again, meghaworth.com, meghaworth.com. It's right up there. And go onto the website and download the ACE quiz and take the ACE quiz, and then schedule a free consultation with me, free 20-minute consultation, where we can talk about your risk and see if I can help you with a plan for change, or maybe I can refer you to somebody else who can help you if it doesn't feel like we're a good fit. Whatever, I'm really open. I just want to help. So, and then also what you'll get when you download the ACE quiz is you'll get my free ebook, The 10 Steps to Overcoming the Effects of Victimization. And then you also get a recipe book. And you're thinking, whoa, recipe book? Well, I was a private chef in Hollywood for 10 years. And I created holistic diets. I created diets to help support specific conditions like cancer, autoimmune disease, candida, kidney disease, Alzheimer's. I've worked with a number of different illnesses and using food to help heal them, including how I used food to heal myself. So food is so important because it supports your biological system as you do the inner work. So I'd love to help you. And I'd love to hear your questions. So just go on over to my website and download your free gifts and get into my newsletter, which is a weekly newsletter. And this week, I believe we've talked about things like raising your energy levels, tips for sexual abuse survivors when they go home for the holidays. I'm doing an awesome workshop in January in Pasadena with Tarni Falloon. And we're offering 2 different techniques of healing, one that she created and one that I created, that actually help to heal you at the cellular level. So, and I'll be talking also about nutrition at that workshop. So anyway, lots of great things around the bend, and I'm really excited to be able to help to have the energy available to me, because I've done so much release work and so much understanding of and healing. So I'd be really excited to help you heal too. So, all right. Well, you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening. And please share this if you feel that you have anybody in your life that you think may benefit from this Facebook Live. Just go ahead and share it. Have them come into my community, like my page. Go onto my website, listen to my podcast series on iTunes called Get Well Soon. There's just so many different offerings that you can partake in. So we'd love to help you, and I hope you have a great weekend. All right, thanks a lot for listening.